Just built yourself an awesome FPV race drone but struggling to get your radio to talk to your drone and program it in Betaflight? Well, stay tuned because it's super easy and I'm going to show you guys how to do it. G'day, Stu here from UAVfutures, and today, well, welcome to like episode 1 of like my beginner tutorials. So basically what these are where I aim to answer some questions straight to the community about things that, you know, sometimes can be a little bit tricky unless we have a video, especially if you're a beginner. So what we're going to be learning about today, this has to be something I get emailed all the time. I've lost count of the amount of emails I've had requesting help and the amount I've replied back to that's saying, Stuart, I've built my drone, but I'm really having trouble hooking my receiver up to my radio and programming it in Betaflight. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing in this episode. I've got my receiver right here. I've got a board with Betaflight on it, so we're going to be sticking it on the bench, and I'm going to be showing you guys just how easy it is to get your drone to talk to your radio and all set up, ready to working, so you guys can go out, rip it around, and have an awesome time. Alright, let's jump in and get started. Alrighty, so I've got my flight controller on the bench. I've also got my receiver that we're going to be hooking up, you know, and I'm using the Turnigy Evolution, but you could be using some other radios, other receivers, whether you're using FreeSky or some other sorts of jazz. The process is going to be very, very similar. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to actually directly solder up our receiver straight to our flight controller. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see exactly what we're doing. Now the flight controller I'm using, look, everything I use I'll link down below, but this is the SP-F3, super cheap. There probably is some better stuff out there nowadays, but I know, look, this one has been around for a long time, but it's still a great little flight controller. Anyway, what we need to do, we're going to be hooking up our receiver. Now you'll notice on all your flight controllers and the way the Betaflight works, it talks to it through UART. So there's a couple of UARTs over here. There's UART number 3, which is these little tabs right here. You can also connect them up using these ones, and then you've also got some little direct solder. Here's another UART. So this UART here, this is UART number 3, and it's actually labeled on the board, so that's going to come in handy later when we're doing our programming on the computer. We'll need to remember UART 3, but simply we're going to wire it up right now. Very, very easy. So we're going to hook up our ground, our positive, and then also our little RX for our receiver. So I'm going to do that now. Alrighty, so that's it. Obviously your build's going to look very different because it's going to be inside a drone, but for the basics, this is going to show you what you need to know. So now we're going to bind up our receiver to our radio. So this part's actually pretty easy. We're going to turn my radio on right here. Stop you squawking. Alright, we're going to go in, and your radio might be a little bit different, but the premise is going to be the same. You need to enter bind mode. So here we are, we've got RX bind. Now I'm going to plug this in on my receiver, this one that I've got right here. You've got a little bind pin. Some are auto binding, sorry, a little bind button. So when I plug this in, I'm going to need to hold this button down to set this in bind mode. Your receiver might be a little bit different. Definitely check the manual or have a bit of a Google how to put your receiver into bind mode. But we've got our radio into bind mode, and now we're going to also bind this up. So we'll put this into bind mode as well. Excuse the hands, this part is a little bit tricky, so especially trying to do this in the bench so everybody else can see. I'm going to plug this in. You can just hear my radio actually just went da-da-da-da, so that shows you. Alright, so they're bound up, so you can see we've got a solid red light here, and we've also got a little part up here on our radio telling us exactly that it is bound. Now a good way to check this, if I unplug this, we should lose that little bottom section there. So unplug it. There you go, now it's saying it's lost the receiver. So before you even plug this into a computer, you can test if they're bound or not. So that's a really important step, so make sure that they're bound. Another way too, if you plug in your, let's say you're plugging it in right here, look, we've got this little bound light, this little red one. If we turn off our radio, yes, we'll turn this off, that should go, and then look here, so you can see now it started flashing. So that's saying that this is no longer bound. There's no longer a radio connection between the two. So make sure before we plug it into our computer that you can get both of them talking to each other. So we've already assessed that. We know that our radio is talking to our receiver. Now for the other second half of this, we need to actually plug it into Betaflight and show you guys exactly how easy it is to set up and then get flying. Alrighty, so I've got Betaflight up on the screen. I'll link it down below for anybody who wants the Betaflight firmware and the GUI, all that sort of stuff. And also, if you've got right here, you need to install these drivers to get it to work. So you can actually get your laptop to program your flight controller. Now I am recording a laptop here. This laptop is way too old. I do wish I had a new one, but my laptop is a piece of junk, so we're just going to have to make do. The information's still going to be the same. So what I'm going to do, let's plug in our flight controller right here. So this is the one we soldered up before, so I've got that right here, and I'm going to click in the top right hand corner. We're going to hit connect, and then the first thing we're going to do, we're going to click over here on the left, this little ports tab. So when we click on there, you notice you've got our different UARTs. UART 3, which is where we we actually connected our receiver to, we need to turn on our serial RX. Now this will be different if you're using PPM or some of those older technologies like PWM, but for S-Bus, I-Bus, all that sort of jazz, this is what we want. So in UART3, we need to turn on our serial X, and then we're going to hit save and reboot over in the bottom right hand corner. Then the next page we need to go to, and I think this is where people get lost, is the configuration. So if we scroll down a little bit, there's a few things we need to actually set up. So under receiver, this right here is what we need to change. So our receiver mode, we need to make sure we choose our serial based receiver, because that's exactly what we're going to be using. So we're going to click on that little bad boy, and then we need to change what sort of serial provider we're using. So for me, because I fly with the Turnigy Evolution, I'm going to be using the, because I use this radio, I'm going to be using iBus. But if you're using FreeSky, you can use S-Bus or something like that. It's just important to match it up to whatever radio and receiver system that you're using. But, regardless, we can continue. I'm sure you guys will be smart enough to put 2 and 2 together. So I'm going to use iBus, and then we're going to hit save and reboot. One other key feature too, this is a little tip. If your quad starts flipping over, make sure that you've got your board aligned properly. So if you've moved your flight controller 90 degrees or something like that, make sure you adjust it in your yaw, because that's one little tip that newcomers often sort of overlook. Anyway, we're going to hit save and reboot. And then there's one more tab that we need to go to. So that is our receiver tab. So you can see over here, we're going to click on that receiver tab. Make sure over here that your channel mapping is set up to whatever radio you're using. So I know for me, with the Turnigy Evolution, we rock default. But if you're using the FreeSky Tyrannus or something, it might be one of the other ones. But now the moment of truth, what we need to do, first we're going to turn on our radio. So you can see we're going to turn on our radio right here. Yes, yes, yes. Put that to the side. I'm going to plug in my receiver. So we've got it just dropping everything. We're going to plug this little bad boy in right here. Alrighty. So you can see as I move my sticks around, the screen is doing exactly what I want it to do. My throttle's going up and down, my yaw's going the correct way. It's all good. That's how easy it is. Definitely not too difficult whatsoever. Alrighty, so there it is. That's how easy it is to get your radio talking to your drone and all set up in Betaflight. So look, no matter what radio you're using, the steps should be very, very similar. Just make sure you're selecting the right UART. There's so much stuff to look at. The right UART, the right serial provider, and then making sure the channel mapping's okay in your receiver tab. But hopefully that helps some of you guys out there, because I know it can be really daunting when you're getting into this hobby, but super fun. So that's probably the hardest part done. Now you guys can go out and rip it around, and drop some comments down below as well if you found this useful, because I'd like to know what you think about this beginner series. Is it something you're interested in, more beginner videos to sort of help you guys out who are just new to the hobby? But on that, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Definitely subscribe for more FPV related content. I release new videos every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so definitely come back all the time to check those out, and as always, happy flying. Alrighty, so hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. Definitely subscribe if you're new to the channel and check out these videos, and I'm also going to leave a little link here to my Patreon page, because I've got some fantastic Patreon supporters and I like to give back to them as well. So if you want to join the UAVfutures family, there's things like bonus velcro straps, little bundles of FPV goodies and things like that that also get sent out. Anyway, happy flying.